In this video, I'm going to give you my definition of what a soft tennis string is. So that way, when we talk about a soft polyester or a softer multi-filament, we all have the same idea of what we're talking about. And that way you can actually kind of get an idea of what some people on the internet mean when they're actually talking about this. This is the definition I've come up with after working in a tennis retail store for the past 8+ years, as well as gaining my MRT, which stands for Master Racket Technician certification here in the US, which was essentially a fancy way of saying I took a test here going over racket technology, string technology, and how that all works together, so that way I can help you actually understand what may work best for your game. So along with that definition, I will also give you 5 budget-friendly options for softer, round polyester strings, and then 5 not-so-friendly budget options that are going to be a little bit more expensive, but technically are going to be a little bit better and just kind of be just the better versions of the budget-friendly options. So let's get into it. Now, the whole premise for this video actually came from a gentleman that commented on one of my previous videos, and his name was Eduardo. And Eduardo was asking, hey, I am playing currently with Yonex Polytour Pro, and I'm looking for a softer polyester that is either going to be similar or a little bit softer than that. Can you help me? And I was like, okay, yeah, I can help. Luckily, he did come to one of the live streams that I was doing to where I was able to answer his question right there with him. We could go back and forth. And if you do have any tennis-related questions, please jump on one of the lives. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to talk with you so we can figure this out. However, when I was thinking through just this kind of idea as well about the softer polyesters, I was like, man, off the top of my head, I couldn't think of quite a few right away because he was already using a very soft polyester, being Polytour Pro. You'll see that show up here later, just as a little spoiler. But I was also just thinking about this, and so then the next day when I was at work, I asked one of my friends, I was like, hey, what do you think would be a good soft polyester replacement for Polytour Pro? And it took him even a few minutes too, and we usually go back and forth right away with each other on strings. So I was like, oh, this is something that I think may actually be helpful for a lot of people. So that's why we're here. So thank you, Eduardo, for the inspiration for the video. And let's get into it officially. So the very first thing is, like I said, the definition of what a soft or a softer polyester or tennis string is. And the way I personally define soft/softer in the tennis context when it comes to strings is that the string is less likely to cause tennis elbow or injury. That is it. Anything more than that definition, then we start getting into other aspects that is more relevant to the string itself that we are looking at in total. So that is where my definition has come from. That is what I will be using when I go forward talking in this video, as well as if you ever do comment about anything. That is what I am typically going to be looking for. If you say or ask me for a string that is soft or softer, I'm going to be making sure that it is less likely to cause injury to you. So with that being said, let's get into the 5 budget-friendly strings first, and then we'll do the 5 not-so-budget-friendly strings later. So the very first budget-friendly string that we're going to talk about is going to be Kirschbaum Super Smash Orange. So first up in the budget-friendly list, we have Kirschbaum Super Smash Orange. Now, quick disclaimer, all of the budget-friendly strings, they are going to be under the price of $13, whether that is at the current time of recording, and that is without them being on sale. So usually, since they are more budget-friendly, they do tend to be on sale quite often. So that's also where the budget-friendly piece came into it. Now with Kirschbaum Super Smash Orange, the cool thing about this one is that I actually have a friend of mine who is a highly competitive junior player. He's playing into I think he's playing into the 18s now, but he's not 18 yet. He's very close, but he actually was having a lot of arm issues, especially tennis elbow and just kind of a few other things. And what we had originally settled on was that he was going to use Solinco Torbite Soft. That had worked for him before. It just kind of broke a little bit quick on him, and he was trying to find something different for quite a while, but eventually we just kind of both had to circle back and go back to Torbite Soft. But one day he was just kind of like cleaning out his tennis bag or cleaning out one of his old tennis bags, and he found a reel of Kirschbaum Super Smash Orange. So he's like, well, I got one string that's already broken, one of my rackets. Might as well give it a try to see what he thought. And funnily enough, that ends up being the string. He loved how it played. It was still just as easy as on his arm, if not maybe a little bit softer, so even a little bit easier on him. And it did help very much to get rid of the actual tennis elbow and problems he was dealing with. And so that's why I say Kirschbaum Super Smash Orange may not have been one that you've heard of before, but it's definitely one to check out if you are wanting to try a softer round polyester that may be able to help prevent tennis elbow or to help you recover if you don't want to go to full multi-filament or natural gut. The second is Head Sonic Pro. 2 on the budget-friendly list is going to be Head Sonic Pro. Now, the reason I have Head Sonic Pro here is because this is a string that I have used many, many times when players are transitioning from their first multi-filament string or like their first string into polyester for the first time. It is still softer on their arm, just like the multi-filament is. Not as much, but it's because they're getting a little bit more control. They're getting a little bit more spin from Head Sonic Pro. But it is still a very soft polyester in order to actually just see if players like polyester strings. And then that way you're also not breaking the bank or anything, because Head Sonic Pro does tend to go on sale quite often. So that's why it's usually a little bit easier for people to go ahead and try it, especially if they do want something that is a little bit more budget friendly and they just want to see how polyester can work for them if they've maybe never tried it before. Third is Genesis White Magic. Now, number 3, the Genesis White Magic. This one's kind of out of left field or anything because most people have probably never even heard of the Genesis string brand. I know I really hadn't until I tried 2 strings from them. I tried Genesis White Magic and I tried Genesis Black Magic. And I would say that Genesis White Magic was a little bit easier on the arm for me than the Black Magic was. Now, the White Magic also had a little bit more feel to it. So that's also why I put it here over the Black Magic. And it has done fine for me. I never really had an issue with it. But it is about, I think it's like $8 not on sale at the time of recording this. So that's where Genesis White Magic came in. Even in the description of the string itself, they say it is a little bit softer as well. So I thought it would just be a good budget-friendly option to throw in here just to see what you think about it and just give you another option from a brand you may not have tried yet. Fourth is Technifiber Red Code. Number 4 on the list for budget friendly, we got Technifiber Red Code. Now, Red Code, this is going to be, I believe, Technifiber's least expensive string that is not a synthetic gut. If I am wrong, please correct me in the comments. I know I will be corrected at some point. But with Red Code, I actually have a friend that they just use this string, the Red Code itself, as a cross for a polyester hybrid because they still wanted to give the player that was using the racket a more comfortable feel because they were transitioning from a polyester multi-filament hybrid to full poly, but they wanted it still to be a little bit easier on them. So they ended up using Red Code as the cross just because it was a little bit softer, a little bit easier. And the person played with it for the first time last night. And I actually got to ask them what they thought about it, and they absolutely thought it was incredible. So Red Code, whether you want to use it for just a cross or just a main in a hybrid, or if you want to use it as a full bed where you're getting a little bit more of that more plush and that softer feel so it's a little bit easier on your arm, then you can pretty much go ahead and see how that's going to play in your specific racket and it's going to affect your specific game without spending over $10 because I think Red Code is around like the $8 mark as well, or just to be even more budget conscious. Then the last one, number 5, is going to be Wilson Revolve. Then finally, Wilson Revolve for the budget friendlies, rounding it out here. This, kind of like with Head Sonic Pro, this is one of those budget-friendly strings that I have found to be a very good transition string if for some reason Head Sonic Pro is unavailable. or if someone just wants to, say, get a Wilson racket and they want to continue to use Wilson strings, Wilson Revolve has done well. I've never really had anyone complain to me that it has ever caused them tennis elbow or that it's ever been an issue for them. So that's where I want to throw Wilson Revolve in there. Just get at least one from different brands out there for you. Make sure that you have plenty of options to try in the budget-friendly option. I do believe Wilson Revolve is going to be the most expensive of the 5 that I have mentioned for the budget-friendly options. However, it's still not nearly as much as the not-so-budget-friendly options that we're going to be talking about next. For the not-so-budget-friendly strings, the very first one we're going to talk about is Babolat RPM Soft. Very first on the list, Babolat RPM Soft. The cool thing about Babolat RPM Soft is that when it was first coming out a few years ago, a friend of mine, he actually had bought a ton of the actual packs just because they were on sale. Babolat wasn't necessarily sure how the string was going to do, so they were just introducing it to the market, and he bought a lot of them. He absolutely loved it. He would hybrid the Babolat RPM Soft because it is a polyester and was very, very soft polyester. He would use that as his cross hybrid in a hybrid with Slinko Torbite Diamond Rough, and that still did not give him arm issues. So because the Torbite Diamond Rough is a very hard on the arm string, but it had the Babolat RPM Soft in the cross to help soften it up and not give as much of the shock and vibration back to my friend's arm and wrist and elbow, that was a good combination for him. It worked out well. And if you were to, say, use the Babolat RPM Soft in a full bed instead of using it as a hybrid, you get even more of that soft characteristic, a lot more power, and just still have it be easier on your arm compared to some of the other round polyesters that are out there that are not marked as soft. Typically, if you do see soft in the name of a string like Babolat RPM Soft or another one that I will mention here in a little bit, you are pretty much going to get one of the softest polyesters that is out there right now. That does not hold true for every round string, as you'll see as well. I have a few that don't say soft in them, but they are still much softer than most. But it is usually something to keep in mind as you are looking at strings. But Babolat RPM Soft has always done well for him. It even feels to me when I'm stringing it like a multi-filament. So it's definitely one to look if you're okay with spending the money for it. Second is going to be Yonex Polytour Pro. All right, Polytour Pro, like I said, you'd be seeing it around later. This is probably one of the softest polyester strings that I've ever played with personally that is round. And like I said, it's not even marked soft. It just is that soft and that easy on the arm. A lot of people do like Polytour Pro as a full bed. I personally prefer Polytour Pro as a hybrid in terms of using it as a cross. My one friend, he uses it as the mains just to give him a little bit more of the Polytour Pro characteristics from the hybrid he's using, which also has Tourline Otoro in the cross, which weird, interesting combo, but that's what he likes. That's what he tested. And I was like, okay, cool. But Polytour Pro does really well. Typically not a string that's going to break very often. You're pretty much going to have to remember how it feels in the beginning and then kind of tell and start to notice when you're starting to have diminishing returns from using the string. So it's definitely something to watch out for, but it is probably also one of the most expensive strings on the list for the not so budget friendly ones. So you kind of do get what you pay for here. It's really good. It is going to be very soft, very easy, very powerful, very spin oriented just because it is a little bit slicker than some of the other polyesters, but it does come with a little bit of a steeper price tag. So something to try, something to consider. I personally prefer it in a hybrid, like I said, but you can still make work in a full bed as well. Third is Luxilon Element Soft IR. Now, number 3, Luxilon Element Soft IR. The big thing about Luxilon Element Soft IR is the fact that Element is Luxilon's softer polyester string. Like, that is what it is designed for. That is what it's designed to do. And Element typically is just going to be that helpful. So I could have put normal Element here, but I decided to go with the Element Soft IR just because I played with that one. I actually liked that one better. It felt a little bit just better overall, a little bit better feel, a little bit better in terms of control and power. It just did everything for me better than regular Element. So that's why I put it here. This has sometimes been a free string that has come with Wilson rackets in the past. If you have wanted to, if you were just purchasing a brand new Wilson racket, Luxilon Element Soft IR, especially when it was first coming out, Wilson did give this to people that they could just put in the racket for free. So that's why it also just comes out here. Number 3 on the list. This list is in no particular order, by the way. This is just how I wrote them down. But yeah, Luxilon Element Soft IR, if you can get past the color or if you like the color, definitely think it's one to check out and still have that soft feel of a round polyester. 4th is Yonex Polytour Air. Now the weird one, Yonex Polytour Air. Probably haven't heard of Polytour Air just because Polytour Pro is usually the big name from the Yonex lines of strings, especially their polyesters that's designed to help give you a little bit more arm friendliness. But the thing is, Polytour Air is technically softer on the arm and less likely to cause tennis elbow / injury than Yonex Polytour Pro is. Now, the reason you don't hear about Polytour Air as much is because since it is so soft, it does not necessarily play as good as Polytour Pro does. That's the kind of trade-off you're going to make between those two, since they are very similar in terms of price. So if you want the Polytour Air, which is going to be arguably the best for making sure that you do help prevent tennis elbow or injury, or if you're trying to recover, this may be the one to go to over Polytour Pro. But if you want the string to be a little bit more playable and you want it to just have a little bit of a better life and give you a little bit better feel, that's where the Polytour Pro comes in. So I wanted to put these two, not necessarily side by side, but I wanted to give you the example of Polytour Pro first, so that way you can know what it was about, and then see Polytour Air as the softer version of that, but it's not going to play the same when you actually have it in your racket. Then the 5th and last one we're going to talk about is Head Hawk Touch. Now finally, Head Hawk Touch, the string of Jannik Sinner and Alexander Zverev, both of whom are 2 of the best current players on the ATP Tour. This string is actually a little bit of a weird one too, because Head Hawk, which Head has been making for many, many years, that is typically a little bit, some would say, stiffer on the arm compared to, say, like their other strings being normal Head Links or anything else like that. So Head Hawk Touch, it kind of went away from that little bit stiffer feel of Head Hawk in order to give the player more comfort, a little bit more power, and just a little bit more feel compared to the normal Head Hawk. That's where Head Hawk Touch comes in. It is probably going to be one of the more expensive strings on the list. I think Polytour Pro just barely edges it out as the most expensive on the list. But if you're wanting to play with the strings that those 2 pros play with, as well as just get a string that is a very high quality string, I believe it only comes in a 17 gauge and an 18 gauge. So that's already designed to be a thinner gauge, which is going to help give you that more spin, a little bit more arm friendliness. And that's where Head Hawk Touch comes in, because it's already forcing you to be a little bit more conscious about your arm and your elbow, since you are going down to the thinner gauge. It's not really going to give you the 16 gauge option. If you have seen it, please let me know. I may be wrong, but I have not personally seen a 16 gauge in the Head Hawk Touch. So that's why I wanted to put that in there. And a lot of the new rackets from Head, they are starting to use Head Hawk Touch as demo string. So that way, if you are demoing from a retailer or somewhere like that, you will most likely be playing with Head Hawk Touch, especially in the newer rackets that are heavier, like the Head Speed MP or the Head Speed Pro. Then Head Hawk Touch is probably going to be what's in there. So it's definitely something to note if you get to try it. This is going to be a little bit more arm friendly, and see what you think about it. And just to give you another option, in the not so budget friendly category. All right, cool. So those are the strings. We've gone through all 10. Now, if you have any strings that you know of that are also going to be budget friendly or not so budget friendly, that are round and soft polyesters that I did not mention here, please put them down in the comments as honorable mentions. I'm sure everyone that is looking for a round soft polyester will greatly appreciate it. As well as, if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments what you're going to try. If it's one of these, great. If not, that's cool too. You can try whatever you want. We luckily get that option here in tennis. But I do hope, especially the definition of soft and softer for tennis strings has helped. I know that it can be very confusing for players that are new into tennis, or players that have been playing for a while but have never really dove deep into the actual gear aspect, to just hear someone on the internet or hear someone at the club say, oh yeah, I'm using this soft poly, and they're just like, what does that even mean? So I hope the definition was helpful to give you a little bit more of a concrete answer, and just make sure that you can talk the game as well as know what's going on, so that way we can help prevent tennis elbow and injury as much as possible. So with that being said, if you liked the video, leave a like on it. As I already said, comment if you got any questions or any strings you're going to try from the list or anything else, as well as other budget-friendly or not so budget-friendly round polyester tennis strings that are soft. Subscribe to the channel so we can grow this channel, get the information out there from the people that have it to the people that need it. And as always, take care.